Alright, part 2, lesson 2, fundamental compression, ignition, engine fuel systems. Describe the fundamentals, compression of the ignition, engine fuel systems, the condition, given information about the type of location, operation, inspection, compression, ignition, engine fuel system components. Alright, learning 1. Describe the components of the principal operating fuel injection systems, introduction, function of the injection system, the demand of the fuel, with accurately deliver equally amount of the fuel to all of the cylinder pressure high enough for the ensure atomization, control the state, start rate, and the duration of the injection, keep all the threefold of the function in the mind, understand the operation of the various systems, diesel engine, some of the gasoline engine, youth fuel injection, step of the carburation, step of these type of the fuel injection systems, or even the Army equivalent of multiple unit injection pump and unit injection, distributor injection pressure time systems. This is multiple unit fuel injection. They show the pump, pump camshaft, the valve, shift, delivery valve holder, delivery valve seat, then plunger barrel, inlet pour, bypass tooth segment, bypass helix, control level sleeve, the plunger, bypass port, control rack rod, mission of oil injection cutoff, by pressure relief. Alright, your multiple unit injection pump system and multiple unit injection pump system. Each of the cylinder individual injection pump where the major of the fuel delivers you the high pressure of the spray and the nozzle leads for the combustion chamber of the pumps are mounted with a common hose are operated with a common shaft. They use the same control of the mechanisms and equal amount of the fuel in each of the cylinder at proper time. Diesel fuel oil flow within the supply tank with the fuel filter, fuel supply pump. The fuel supply pump forces the fuel through the additional filter. Injection pumps. Injection pumps are force measured amount of the fuel injection with a high pressure with the spray nozzle combustion chamber. Surplus of flows from the injection pump through the check valve of the common housing returns to the fuel supply tank. This shows your multiple injection bleeder valve, the overflow of the fuel pump, the fuel injection pump, the fuel passage, nozzle tip, needle valve, and spring, the fuel passage through the body of the lubricant and the fuel. For proper engine performance, for the fuel oil must be injected with the combustion space for the finite spray with the accomplished with the spray nozzle held in current position with the cylinder head and the nozzle holder. The fuel delivered with the injection pump with the flow with the high pressure line with the edge of the nozzle holder with the inlet with the pass for the edge of the filter flow with the duct with the holder with the nozzle body. Flow down into the pressure chamber with the pressure spray nozzle with the above the valve seat. The pressure of the fuel oil acts as the differential area of the nozzle valve. At a moment when the pressure fully exceeds the pressure exerted with the adjusting spray with the nozzle valve, lifted off the seat with the fuel with the force of the orifice spray with the combustion chamber into the engine with the nozzle valve. The return with the seat after the injection pump that ceased to deliver the hydraulic opening pressure for the spray nozzle vary from 1,000 to 4,000 psi depending on the engine combustion chamber requirements. Because of the widely different shapes of the fuel spray, the various combination chamber of the design because of the wide range of the engine power demand for the various nozzles, usually with the multiple unit injection pump of the system, and essentially with the two basic groups of the point is pintle nozzle and the whole nozzle. Pintle nozzles are generally used for the engine pre-combustion turbulence divided chambers. Whole nozzles are generally used when open combustion chamber design. Nozzle holder. The nozzle holder holds the spray nozzle in correct position for the engine cylinder and provides the means for the conducting fuel oil nozzle and heat away from the nozzle. Figure 14 unit injection system. This shows your camshaft Fowler oil pump racks, push rod, jam nut, clevis, rocker arm shaft, injection clamp, injection rocker arm, injection Fowler, rocker arm cover, adjusting screws, rack lever control, and fuel injection food control time lever, injector control rack, filter element, copper tube, fuel injector, oil passage, rocker arms. Alright, unit injection system. System consists of the injectors for the fuel supply pump with the fuel oil filter, fuel oil manifold with the drum with the supply of the tank with the primary filter, the fuel supply pump. From the pump, the fuel is forward with the secondary filter, the fuel intake of the manifold with the supply of the injector supply of the fuel with the flow of the injector return with the outlet manifold supply tank of the outlet unit injectors combined with the inject pump of the fuel valve with the nozzle for the single of the housing eliminate the high pressure line. The units provide with a complete independent injection system with each of the cylinders are mounted with a cylinder head with a spray with the tips with the slide with the bottom below with the top of the inside with the strip of the combustion chamber with the U-clamp with the bolster with the cylinder head with the floating the main machine recess each of the inside injector body with a hole for the injector with a plate for the water cooled copper with the tube with the pass for the cylinder head tapered the lower end of the injector seal see with the copper tube from forming a tight seal with a stand with a high pressure inside with the cylinder fuel oil pump fuel oil supply with the injector about the 20 psi into the body with the top of through the filter cap of the air after passing through the fine grade filter element inlet passage of the fuel oil filled for the angular ring shape with the supply chamber between the air bushing and split deflector the plunger operates up and down for the pushing with the bore which is connected with the fuel supply with the annual chamber of the two fuel funnel shape ports one on each side with the different heights. Alright, injector rocker arms. Injector arms are actuated with the push rod of the engine camshaft with the motion with the injector rocker arm transmitted with the plunger follower, which pump bears again with the return spring. In addition, with the reciprocating motion with the plunger can be rotated, operated with the axis for the gear, which is measured for the control rack. Each each control rack is connected between a joint lever on the common control tube, which is in turn linked to the governor throttle. Or this shows your camshaft with the push rod with the fuel injection connection, the injector with the rod with the metering of the distributor with the distributor index with the fuel delivery from the metering end to the injector with the distributor rack with the fuel from pressure pump. Alright, then it shows the section gear suction pump with the bypass valve with the low chamber from the tank of the pressure gap with the gas to the injector with the distributor index with the travel of the pressure pump with the metering pump with the eccentric rocker arm. Alright, distributor injection systems. The system used with the automotive diesel engine with the coalesced on low pressure system pumping the medium with the distribution taking place with low pressure, high pressure for the required with the building up with the injector at the cylinder, suction gear pump with the fuel tank delivers the float chamber with the second gear pump delivers the low pressure for the distributor, fuel path for the distributor for the metering pump with the distributor gain and out of the injector, which is injected within the cylinder. Your distributor consists of the rotating disc for the stationary cover with the tank within the fuel line for the rotating with the individual injector. The disc covers with a series of the holes of the properly indexed with the such for the passage for the fuel supply for the pump, the metering pump. The metering pump moves down in suction strokes for the permanence of the barrel with the fill with the oil with the disc. Continue with the rotate lines up with the correct discharge hole cover the metering pump. Plunger provides action with the main fuel pump cam. This force of the fuel the pump project inject. Proper inject line. Metering pump is closely fitted with the reciprocating pump with the motion with the cover with the linkage with the plunger with the lever the plunger lever the operative with the venturi with the vertical lever with the control with the turn with the eccentric rock lever running directly off of the cam with the fuel pump main shaft with the position with the vertical lever and eccentric with the rocker arm lever. Determine the travel of the plunger lever, consequently, the travel of the metering plunger. Metering plunger starts upward with the control stroke with the push of the fuel with the injector through the passage of the form with the rotating distributor disc. The stroke with the metering plunger with the term of the amount of the fuel going to each injector with the varied change with the position vertical lever between the stop pins and the cam rocker lever. Injector consists of the forged body with the fader plunger with the plunger is forced down against the spring of the action rocker arm out kicks away to push rods and engine camshaft mounted on the end of the body and the cup of the which contained the nozzle on the intake stroke over the engine fuel pump metering pump with the fuel chart forces the charge of the fuel exact amount with the load and speed of the engine and this cup into the cup. Pressure time system. The system operates with the principle of the chain with the pressure air liquid through the pipe of the chain with the amount of liquid coming out with the opening end. Creep of the pressure and creep of the amount of the liquid delivered to the pressure type with the conceive of the fuel pump with the governor supply with the dry line for the injector 50. Figure 16 shows the pressure type gear pump. And they show the manual starting at 12 o'clock. Manual number of the clock shutdown valve, the gear pump, pole station damper. Idle adjusting screw maximum spring, idle spring throughout shaft, governor plunger, governor weights, governor assister plunger, main shaft, the tachometer, filter screens. Alright, your fuel pump. The fuel pump is made with the three main units with the gear pump with the pressure regulator with the governor and throttle with the gear pump with the draw with the fuel from the supply tank with the delivery under pressure with the pump with the supply line with the individual injector. Pressure regulator eliminates the pressure for the fuel into the injector. Governor and throttle as an independent pressure regulator to control the fuel pressure for the regulator. Injector fuel cycle review the injector at all times except during the short period of the following injection combustion period for the inlet connection. Fuel flows down the inlet passage, inlet and around the injector pump of the body, into the cup of the drain, passage of the drain connection, the manifold of the back to the supply tank. As the plunger comes up with the injector feed pass with the opening of the fuel flow over the metering orifice into the cup at the same time with the fuel flow over the pass of the cup of the outlet of the drain orifice of the amount of the fuel entering the cup with its control of the fuel pressure against the metering orifice of the fuel pressure is controlled by the fuel pump during injection. The plunger comes down, the orifice closes, fuel cup is injected, cylinder with the plunger received with the cup of the fuel injector is stopped. Or its supply pump. The injector pump must be supplied with the fuel oil pressure and the cup of the insufficient suction ability. There is an injection system required with the supply point transfer of fuel system. Fuel from the supply tank with the injection pump. The pumps also have the purpose of positive suction lift. Their performance is independently with the normal variation viscosity, pressure, temperature of the fuel of the pump is usually towed a gear plunger or vane type. Alright, governors. Engine speed with the diesel engine control with the amount of the fuel injected consequent with the injection system and the design and supply with the maximum amount of the fuel will be enabled the engine to operate with the full load with the reaching of the predetermined maximum speed or RPM. However, the maximum fuel charge of the supply with the cylinder while the engine is operating with under partial load, or no load, the engine will overspeed and soon cause failure. All diesel engines require governance to prevent overspeeding with the engine under high loads and diesel engines demand control with the idling speed. Governors provide various speed controls because decide by the controlling minimum and maximum speed with holding the intermediate speed desired by the operator. Our learning event number 2. Describe the principal operating compression, ignition, engine, air induction system. Air induction, naturally aspirated. With the power to the level of the natural aspirated with the internal combustion engine with the dependent with the U with the density with the air inductive with the engine with the naturally aspirated air engine of the air is drawn into the center onto the intake with the force of the action onto the gas equal the pressure difference between the atmosphere and the cylinder of the pressure of the cylinder pressure approach to the perfect vacuum, which is zero pressure for the atmospheric pressure over the 15 psi of the airflow pressure forcing the cylinder into about 15 psi. Higher density can be attained by the atmospheric air density that is not usually attained because of the certain loss for the internal combustions. Leakage passes the piston pressure drops across the restriction manifold, leaking of the valve, and also heating of the air and of the manifold, which tends to expand with the gas and decrease its density. All of these losses must be hard for the engine to breathe, but they cause the slow of the response of the accelerator with the depress, and the produce of the torque output with the maximum power output with the engine speed. Increase of the breathing of the engine becomes more difficult because of each cylinder has a shorter time in the fill itself of the air-fuel mixture. Alright, supercharging. Supercharging consists of giving the air intake with the process of the supplementary fans of the blower of the compressors, and subcharging greatly increase the power output of the engine, very little increase with the weight with the supercharger with the accomplishes this by increasing overall efficiency of the engine. Overall efficiency, internal combustion engine with this effect with the main factor. A more factor of volumetric efficiency. Volumetric efficiency can be defined by the ratio of the weight of the air actually drawn into the engine with a definite period of the time of the air that could be drawn without the loss of the presence in any engine, leakage, friction loss, of the heat transfer loss, or so forth. The term volumetric efficiency is slightly misleading because of the engine efficiency as actually a ratio of the weight of the volumes. However, this is a term used in connection with the pump of the compressor for the ratio of the volume, but this term has become applied with the engine efficiency also. Our properties of the gas and their relationship to supercharging. Review of the mass and volume, the density of the applied with the gas, and necessary to explain with the principle of supercharging. All matter may also be classified as solid, fluid, liquids. Fluids in terms of subdivided liquid and gases. These weight with the substance depends upon the density of the density. Solids and liquids may be considered and equally constant, but it is not in the case of the gas if the density of the gas and the proportional to the gas implied. In other words, if the pressure you give the gas increase the density, the will increase. Therefore, two identical volume of the gas for the under the different pressure will not weigh the same. With the example of the sea level of 13 cubic feet, with the air weighs 1 pound. But the higher altitude, the atmospheric pressure for the lower 13 cubic feet, air weighs a good deal less. Most weight in the vehicle of the engine and volume of the two an engineer have the different meaning of the wave in general with the two may be considered means. Volumes refer to the space occupied with the matter or weight that refers to the force of a certain volume of the matter with the exerted scale, weight and substance directly with the proportional density volume. Boyle's law of the volume of the gas is reduced applying pressure, known as compression. Boyle's law states the volume of the ideal gas inversely proportional to the pressure upon it. If then the temperature is maintained constant, there is no ideal gas, but air conforms closely and considered ideal. Air induction supercharged engine, supercharged essentially with a pump of which function of the compress the air and fuel mixture increase, and to the density of the charge of the subcharge increase the power output with the two ways. Increase density of the air fuel mixture delivered with the cylinders to the engine and increase the maximum compression pressure. The compression ratio of the engine and the account for the greater pressure for the beginning of the compression stroke with the greater with the pressure for the end of the stroke. Higher compression increases the power output of the engine back up with the burning of the temperature of the gas and higher therefore the energy of the release per stroke of the engine. Supercharger systems and pump, the type of the drive with the mean of the drive, the supercharger of the pump with the U with the one system exhaust escaping the exhaust gases, U with the drive, a turbine coupled supercharger impeller motor with the turbocharger of the second method is mechanical device power with the gear train from the engine. Type of the pump to the compressor of the four basic type of the our compressor diaphragm reciprocating and rotary and central figural. Diaphragm and reciprocating pumps are not used for subcharging because of the limited amount of the air they can handle. Rotary and central figural compressors have no reciprocating part of the large volumes of air can be handled per unit. For this reason, only ratio rotating compressors, rotary and central figural can be used for supercharging. Figure 17 shows the routes of supercharging. Root supercharging, root test compressor over the blower was designed especially for the essential efficient direct diesel operation supply of the fresh air need with the combustion scavengers to cycle the diesel engine operating similar to the gear type of the oil pump with the scavenging problems process chamber with the air force in the cylinders blower with the thoroughly sweep all burned gases through the exhaust valve port for the air help the cool the internal engine with the power parts of the exhaust valve engine burning at the beginning of the compression stroke of the after scavenging each of the cylinders filled with a fresh and clean air over the efficient of combustion. These the air entering the blower from the air cleaner with the pick of the blower rotor lobes and then carried out with the discharge side of the blower with the continuous flush of the blow enters the air chamber with the cylinder blocks and then sweep to the intake with the cylinder liners. The angle of the port with the cylinder liners creates uniform swirling motion over the intake of the air with the enter the cylinder. The motion with the persist through the compression stroke of the facility with the scavenging position. Combustion. This figure 18 shows the central figure subcharged with air outlet with the two the carburetor impeller air centers the air thrown off at the brim of the impeller and the housing. Central figure supercharged with the turbocharger with the non-positive displacement and the type of the compressor high output the capacity and proper to install with the air inlet with the usually made with aluminum alloy forging. It is designed to withstand high central figure forces of rotation balance calculated with the roof vibration and the radial lines. Impeller catch air with the air central figure force with radial passageway form of the vanes. Compression increase with the air whirled in the center outward with the move more air rushes to the fill the for the void at the center of the compressor air with the progressively smaller within the smaller volume of the travel with the hub with the velocity of the air decrease with the passing with the hub to the parameter decrease the velocity rise with the pressure is called diffuser compression. The three step of the compression with the central figure supercharged with the cuff with the central figure action diverging contour of the outer perimeter and action with the diffuser plate. Alright, learning event 3, describing the procedure for the inspection of the compression, ignition, engine, fuel system. Introduction. You may know the difference of the construction of the operation between the fuel system and the compression of the ignition of the spark ignition system. There are also a lot of differences mainly for the procedure of the performing two systems. As a rule, the maintaining fuel system, the compression, ignition, engine for the require with each of the more, even more knowledge of the skill of the sparking ignition system mechanics are capable of well trained with a greater demand with the more advantage of the further extra effort subject for the true or more major maintenance of compression ignition fuel systems will be done with the fuel electrical system repair, but many of the things done with the organizational repair for the instant of the wheel vehicle, the mechanical working organization level may be called upon to do any of the following input test services and clean and tighten and make some of the adjustments with the even replace the components of the fuel air and induction system. Work done by you with the detecting and repairing trouble. They are all small, but they have the change for the cause of serious problems and need. They are most important in all the maintenance. Inspection of the component. You will probably do more of the work in the main multi-fuel system with the one few diesel fuel tank of the major part with the lesson will maintain the air fuel system of the 2.5 trunk of the M35A and M35A2, which are powered with the multiple fuel engines. However, the following is should get you out of the job inspection air fuel system in these trucks. Alright, starting in the inspection fuel tank air over the hose of the rusty spout with the proper running with the tank that has the rusty spout and some of the other parts, rubbing against the tank with a leak with assume the develop with the inspect with the filler cap to make sure that the seat seals the filler neck with the held with the rotating chain with the check with the condition with the filler neck with the fuel strain with the visual chain with the fuel gauge, setting the fuel pump erections, fuel pump oil electrical connections, check for the damage of the leaking fittings connections. Alright, traces of the fuel, feed with the fuel return with the vent line with along with the frame with the make sure that they're not broken, leaking with the bent and crimped and damaged with any with the way, make sure with the line with the crimped and clipped and securely with the frame so that it won't break with the room of the vibration with the holes rubbing in with the near part, but the trace of the fuel line will come back to the primary fuel filter mounted of the frame bracket with the under of the engine generator, check the filter closely with the insecure the mounting leaking and the damage. Open the drain valve with the bottom of the filter wave with the aim with the dirt and water, allow the catch to drain and fall into the container and dispose of the properly where they will not use the fire hazard. If any of the dirt and water found with the primary filter drain with the secondary filter is found with the secondary filter drain with the final filter, but the secondary and final and fuel filters are mounted with the left of the rear of the engine. A large amount of the dirt and water found with an air filter, especially with the final filter, clean the primary filter and replace secondary and final filter elements. Inspect the fuel injection pump, opening linkage connection, lines, improper binding, external damage with such engine locating, lubricating oil with the injector pump. You will have to be open, locate out oil leaks as well. Fuel leaks for the inspect of the injector pump. There's also conditions of the project of the dust cap. High pressure outlet, injection pump, hydraulic heat, head, and extreme caution with the check of the leaks of the working high pressure fuel lines. The fuel on each end of the pressure puncture your skin, cause the blood poisoning. Keep your hands away from the suspected leak of the engine is running. Inspect with the high pressure lines with the fuel and nozzle with return lines damaged and leaks and proper mounting. Use a wrench to check with the fuel injector nozzle mounting bolts with loose bolts should be tightened with a torque wrench. And move the opposite side of each for the compartment with the inspect the air induction system, check with the air intake with the hood, rain hood, excess dirt, and check with the air intake flexible tube with the condition. Make sure that the flexible tube does not leak. Check air with the mounting for tightness. Alright, release of the air to body base with the mounting clamp with the remove the body from the base for the check for the condition for the rubber seal with the mounting clamp with the make sure for the base for the seals are airtight with the again for the cleaner body with the check for the filter element, excess for the dirt, everything is water, hardening with the filter material with the external damage. Make sure they look over the either entire fuel air intake system either for anything that seems to be wrong with the broken parts, with the worn parts, leaks. Also look for anything that indicates a part which may be the trouble to make up with the trouble. In other methods, learning systems may help you locate the trouble. If the engine will run, start and looks free for leaks around the fuel lines, the connection is known as operational functional inspection or functional inspection. Remember, you have 5 senses that can help you to locate the trouble. You, for example, smell, or you might see it. You might hear air whistling. It looks as it looks. You also have a hole with the air cleaner hose of the post past the hose. Or inspection malfunction of the vehicle. Once you have learned over that, you can have a look over the system and report it with the vehicle that you have at any minute point. Maybe the defective may cause trouble with the truck that lost power with the other system lean with the driver was using more fuel than normal. The two systems point out the engine with either getting too much fuel with not enough air. One or more of the portable cause of the case of the partial plunge of air. However, the genesis of the removing parts don't haste and replace until all systems have been considered. Systems that show up with the engine power fuel consumption exhaust systems can also be caused by faulty air intake component. The probable troubleshooter may be stop the engine with using much fuel, replacing in the fuel system. Main thing is to try to find the actual causing of the trouble. It's called the diagnosing the systems or isolating the faults. Another trouble you may find is the engine stops because of the fuel being injected with the cylinder with the caused by different conditions. Let's see how the perceived the locating cause of the trouble. Remember, do not start with removing parts. Make a good visual inspection fuel system first. Include with the check of the fuel line and fuel tank. Make sure the fuel lines are not cracked or broken. Examine the linkage of the fuel injector pump with accelerated linkage of the gauze could be disconnected with a speed adjustment. If that wrong with the wet cylinders would be out of fuel. Another linkage with it would also cause the trouble with the fuel out shut off control. Make sure that it's not improperly adjusted. Check with the T if the shut-off control clamp cable housing is slip rearward out of the clip of the fuel injector pump with condition. Cover the trouble to have the same pump factory with the pumping out of the control cap. You cannot see anything wrong. Check the sheet of the fuel lines open with the tank of the fuel injector for the pump. This should be done first. Disconnect the fuel line inlet side with the injector pump hydraulically head. Turn on the accessory switch of the fuel is pumped with the tank through the line with the making ensure you catch the fuel with a sustainable container. And above the inspection, you find out that the lines that are not plugged in intake pump operating the fuels do not flow out of the disconnected line with the trouble of the back toward the tank. If the flow does flow over the trouble, the moment may be in the fuel injector pump high pressure lines, the injector nozzle. If no fuel flow, there could be many reasons for the fuel lines or filters could be plugged and open on an intake pump that may not be operating. May not be operating. If you listen close to the tank, then you can hear the intake pump humming. When it is operating, an intake pump operating, you can check the pressure from the proper does not apply with the check operating electrical pump. Alright, if the intake pump of the operating with it should be with no fuel reach of the injection pump, the trouble can be easily located with the intake pump of the running with the loosening fitting with the fuel lines, opening bleed valve at the time one at a time. See if the fuel flow will flow out. The start with the final age of the engine secondary filter for the work toward the tank. Let's say that the fuel leaked with the loosening of the fitting of the tank side with the vehicle primary filter. However, no fuel leak from the fitting of the engine side with the filter indicates the trouble is in the filter. It's probably stopped ups and needed in cleaning. If fuel reach of the injector pump leakage at all right, the problem must be in the injector pump of the injector nozzle line. Nozzles and line authorized to replace with a high pressure line, but however the unlikely that they are all plugged. Next step of the notify all support and conditions. Another problem you may find with the fuel intake with the system with the important fuel air, make sure for the clog with the air cleaner. Cause smoky exhaust low engine power, but they also cover the truck with the tank bunch over the fuel air. Make sure for the combustion chamber to make sure for the too rich if it does not have enough air. Let's see if the else can cover the improper. Make sure for the air and fuel. Some 2.5 ton multi-fuel engine turbo supercharger helps supply air over the engine cylinder. If the turbo supercharger is defective with the fuel air, make sure for the come with too rich, especially high engine speed. With the defect of the turbo supercharger will be generally show the same system with the clogged air cleaner. This includes smoky dust, low power, and usually too much fuel. Then you should check with the air fuel cleaner first which of these systems appear. If the air cleaner element is not clogged, check with the manifold heater gaskets for leakage. The gases could be blown. Manifold heater elbow could be loose. Any leak within the area will decrease with the turbo supercharger output. Call the fuel air. Make sure to be rich. If the manifold heater with the gaskets are leaking, the air cleaner is not clogged. The fault is in the turbo supercharger. You should notify your super maintenance unit because it is authorized to test, remove, and replace the turbo supercharger. High fuel consumption is probably you should look into this as soon as possible. The problem may not be seen important, however, the driver or the other person aboard may be riding via a very unsafe vehicle. Alright, when vehicle use much of the too much fuel, the first thing and for the leaks of the driver says of the engine with the developed full power with a bit of too much fuel. Good possibility that it is what is wrong is many with the fuel system on the right side of the vehicle. The hot exhaust system is there also. You can see that while looking for the leaks of the make sure of the fuel line with the fitting of the type of the no leaks of the file and turn on with the intake of the pump and then recheck the leaks. Start with the engine, check for leaks. Check an air tank intake of the blockage such as clogged air cleaner. Remember the restricted air intake of the system generally cover the black exhaust and low power. The engine will also give you too much fuel with the injector pump out at the time with the improper adjust for the general. The engine out of adjustment also be on low on the power. It seems to be trouble to notify your support maintenance unit with the manifold flamer heater with the aids starting multi-family engine, fuel engine when it's cold. If you have trouble starting with the engine with the manifold heater with the possible heater with the not working properly, you can also troubleshoot with the heater in the following manner. Inspect the entire intake manifold of the flame heater. Assembly, make sure that there is all in there is connected properly with the fuel lines and wiring injection. All looking at it right for finding out the similar system fault that might be with the fuel system and ignition system. First, make sure that there's no leak with the intake manifold flame heater with the switches closed. Next, disconnect with the high tension over the lead. Spark plug, hold the wire with a 1/4 inch over the metal part with the spark plug with the head some of the turn intake with the manifold heater switch. Electrical sparks continue to jump at the gap between the wire and the plug metal with the electrical system is alright. And if no sparks, show them check out for the rest of the electrical circuit with the electrical system, all of the rest over the check with the fuel system with the fuel pump. Make sure the lines are not clogged. If the trouble lines over the fuel pump with the nozzle not for the support unit. You should check it out. You should not be able to see what makes good troubleshooting procedure. Make sure of the way make an inspection before you move any parts. Question the vehicle operator if possible to learn all the systems may be able to give it. They may have operational checks to find out, such for the starting engine to find the fuel tank, fuel leak. Always make it a functional check with the corrected of the trouble to make sure the vehicle is in operating condition. Then you got your practice exercises, questions, and answers. Lesson 3, engine exhaust.